Well, Arnú, tá go leor Anna Pat Lam, Steve Shatira, Mariol ar an obair rinne se a Gaeilge Connacht. Ach, far dag a sean tír seos go sean go Bristol, but he now joins us on the line. Pat Lam, Kate Míle Fáilte.
Gur Margaret.
Well, when you came to the west of Ireland way back when, what were you expecting?
I suppose, I knew, because, one of my best mates at school was Irish, and as it turned out, I found out later on that he came from Galway. And but the reason we were really close is because when he was so friendly, the whole family, there was 11 in the family, of course, just a small Irish family, and very similar to the Samoans. But I knew that hospitality and friendship was going to be good. But I think the biggest thing I knew was a massive challenge to go to Connacht. I obviously found out a bit about it. I knew about the Munsters, obviously, and the Leinsters, and a bit about Ulster, but certainly Connacht was going to be a huge challenge. But when I asked people, when I took the job or when I was thinking about it, everyone talked about the west of Ireland being the best, and that I was really in touch with the culture, and a lot of that appealed to me, and it didn't disappoint.
Well, I suppose a lot of times people do come to Galway. I'm a Galwegian myself. I grew up in Galway, and they speak about the culture, they speak about the crack, they speak about the great fun in Shop Street and the atmosphere. Connacht rugby didn't feature that highly, and another thing that often doesn't feature either was the Irish language. But bit by bit, you tried to knit those things together. At what point did you even find out about the Irish language?
Well, I knew because obviously I thought, again from outside that Gaelic was the language, and then no, it's Irish. And but when I arrived, a lot of the people that I met, I always asked, do they speak the language? And then they said it's very big out here. And then obviously my kids started school, and my older ones didn't have to take Irish because they were exempt because they were older, but my daughter at the time was 7 years old when she arrived, and she was learning it at school, and so and then I knew they went away on holidays to certain schools to be really entrenched in it, which was awesome because I think it's a big part of the culture, and what I was trying to do is when I played rugby, it was always about. In the old days, in the amateur days, which I was blessed to play to do, you played for your club, your school, your province, and your country. Never would you change. Very similar to Gaelic football, to hurling and the football. But once professionalism came in, so you didn't have to worry about emotion and what you're playing for because you knew what it was. But once it went professional. I didn't change. I needed to find out what is this team, who am I representing? Because it is like going to war. When you really get down to the last few minutes, you need to know who I represent and why am I going to put my body on the line for. And so I was very much wanting to find out everything about who we represent and what was Connacht stood for.
So was that maybe drawing upon maybe your own Samoan descent? Obviously your parents are Samoan, you lived in New Zealand growing up. Did you kind of realise, hang on a minute now, there's something that makes me different, and while sometimes that can single me out, sometimes it can be a hugely positive thing. Let's figure out what's different about Connacht, and it possibly was the Irish language compared to the other provinces. Yeah,
without a doubt. I think, certainly I grew up born in New Zealand, but certainly Samoan parents, and went back and forth to Samoa for holidays. But, people used to say, well, so what are you? And I said, man, I'm hugely proud Samoan. I'm a hugely proud Kiwi as well. and the thing is, I think the biggest thing about all culture, and particularly what I found in Samoa, everyone's your bro. Everyone's your cousin. And even though you're not related.
Just like the west of Ireland, except you usually are related.
Yeah. And extended family and being part of a family is huge. And understanding that you can take that wherever you go and make it part of a culture, that you don't have to be blood, but just the fact of I'm going to look after you, you're going to look after me, and we'll take care of everything together and work as a team. So the culture, understanding what Ireland was about, but certainly the west of Ireland and what Connacht meant to them. And one thing I didn't quite understand, I didn't realise that there's a fierce rivalry between Galway and Mayo and Roscommon and Leitrim. Mm-hmm. The rugby sense of it, it was like trying not say we're a Galway team, but we represented the 5. And I didn't realise it until I arrived, and there was a map of Connacht, of all the different regions. And I was like, oh, and I started to memorise them and then I said, look, I'm going to try and get out and find out all of these places. And then I put it into the handshake so I could remember it, and I wanted all the players to remember it. And then we made a huge effort to make sure that we got out to all of those regions. And I did it pretty much within the first couple of months I was there. Went and visited all, and it was beautiful, and met the people. And I knew that was going to be really important to get the whole county behind us, the whole province behind us. Sorry.
That's really interesting, Pat. And it was kind of one of the most evident things when you were watching on from the outside was that you really got neutrals excited about Connacht during your time with them. But it was also how you managed to tap into it, as you're talking about the province as nearly an energy source for the team. Like you mentioned there the handshake, and I know you used to do a lot of summer camps throughout the provinces in Galway. Like rugby as a sport, like you've mentioned the rivalry there with, Galway, Mayo and Leitrim and Sligo in terms of Gaelic football maybe. But as a sport, like the rugby culture in Connacht, how else did you try and tap into that? Like how did you try and knit the province together as a whole?
Well, I think the first thing is that we needed to establish the vision of what we're trying to do. And I've said it many times that once you got the vision, it then drives the leadership. So all the leadership of within Connacht Rugby and right down, our decisions have to be around how do we achieve this vision. So establishing that first. And as we went about, because I knew when I first arrived, there was meetings with the board, and they wanted to talk about how we can improve the culture of Connacht Rugby.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there smiling, and they were all debating it in this boardroom. And then I said, can I just show you my first slide? And I put it up, and I said, vision drives leadership, and then leadership drives the culture, and then culture drives the performance, and that's what's going to leave the legacy. And they all look, and I said, so I understand you want to look at culture, but I've asked everyone. I got told when I came here, the vision for Connacht Rugby, when I said in my interview, was to be the best province in 5 years. And I love that. But then the problem was, when I got there, I asked everybody, what's the vision of Connacht Rugby? Not one person told me that was what it was. So I said, well, we have a fundamental issue here, is that we've all got to understand what it is. So we ended up having a bit of a workshop, and we ended up establishing our vision of being inspiring our community through rugby success, which encompassed everybody. So everyone, and that, if we are, we have unbelievable victories. We beat Munster. That's just a moment of inspiration, but it carries on. The boys in the hospital visiting the sick children, that's inspiration. We were able to identify, suddenly all these young kids wearing Connacht jerseys instead of Munster jerseys. That's inspiration too. So it gave everyone more than just playing the game, and more than just supporting the guys who play the game, and understanding that this is bigger than just the rugby game of rugby. And then the next thing we needed to do was certainly connect the guys to the community. And I said, fellas, we've got to get out and see the community. And it was a two-way thing, because I wanted them to obviously the community to meet us and see what we're about, and spread the word, if you like. But the biggest thing is I wanted the players who were from Dublin, who were from Cork, who were from all around Ireland, and then all of those around the world, to understand who we represent. Because I said, we're going to get into some real tough battles where we are, and we've got to be able to put our body on the line for, I didn't want people to come and, well, I'm a Leinster man, or I'm so forth, when it really, when we play Leinster, I want them to understand you'll always be a Leinster man, you'll always be a Samoan or a Kiwi, but we're here to put our bodies on the line for these people who we represent. And it's easy to say, but you need to connect them. And when the boys started getting out and seeing all these kids and seeing the community, it really took off.
It's remarkable listening to you talk about how you implement something like that, because anytime I've experienced a good culture, it's occurred nearly naturally and unbeknownst to the people who are within it. Like, it's something that you can't fake. It's something that you can't just pluck out of the sky. You really have to try and implement it the way you did. Just another one on, just trying to tie it into language. So we're recording this podcast around Seachtain the Gaeilge and how we can improve and facilitate the use of Irish a little bit more. How do you see any way from your Samoan descent and the relationship that Samoans would have with their own language. And like I'm speaking without any insight at all here. Kind of just reference an article from Duncan Casey, which I'd referenced earlier, but he was talking about being in Grenoble, and some of his best friends over there are Tongans and Samoans and people from the Pacific Islands, and how he was asked to speak some Irish and teach them a few words, and he couldn't. And he was fairly impressed by how they had managed to maintain their relationship with their language and so remain so in touch with it. I think a lot of people feel disenfranchised from Irish over here, and that it's nearly forced upon them. I don't know if you think there's a way that we can naturally encourage it in our communities.
I think all the leaders, I think just like it happened in New Zealand quite a few years ago, where the Maori language now is huge. It was almost dying, but they saw the same thing with the Samoans and the Tongans, that, you know, when they looked closely, that the language and the culture, even though they lived in different parts of the world, was huge and was a big part of their identity, and gave them obviously a real self-esteem and a real confidence in who they are. And once you're confident in who you are, then the impact that you can make to other people is huge. And so in New Zealand, they realized the Maori culture was struggling, and to the point where presenters on TV were saying the names, like, instead of saying, Manukau, they were going, Manukau, and they were saying but they forced all presenters, they brought into school, all the pronunciation of the words was brought in. So it's like, obviously I was the leader at Connacht Rugby. So if I say this is what we're going, but paint it in a way of the why. Why are we going to go and see all of these kids? Why are we going to do all the stuff in the community? All right, because we're here, we want to get to here. And the best way to do that is we're going to need our whole community and everyone going through. So it was easy for the boys. So I believe in New Zealand, the government realised, if we don't do something, we're going to lose the culture. So they started to make all the pronunciations compulsory. Schools started bringing it back into the schools, and now it's flourishing. So in Ireland, I just think, you know, the key decision makers have got to go, this is, just draw a line and say, if we're going to keep our language, this is what needs to happen. And I think my daughter, she's doing teachers college here. She wanted to be a primary school teacher in Ireland, but she couldn't because she couldn't speak the language. And people say, well, that's a shame. That's silly. I said, no, it's good. It's good, you know, because it's an important part to get that through. So she couldn't do it there. But I think little things like that, making it compulsory, but you have to give the why. Why? Paint the picture that we're proud to be Irish. This is who we are, and if we don't, a lot of it will die.
Can I ask you, Pat, and you might be in a unique position maybe to answer this, why do you think, and I'm sure you came across it yourself living in Galway while you were here for a few years, why do you think that so many Irish people are nearly, like, they're competitive toward the Irish language? Like, why do you think that is? Is it a fear of the unknown? Is it an inferiority complex? Or, like I said, you're coming in from a different perspective, but yet quite similar because you have your Samoan culture.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I don't offend anyone, but
offend away, we don't mind.
I think what happened when I arrived, like, you know, to be really honest, I really didn't have any idea of the Irish history, because I obviously grown up in New Zealand, all our history was English history, and it was quite horrific, some of the things that went on, you know, and that's why, you know, my wife thinks she's Irish. You know, we have you know, and when we met so many of the people, but sometimes the history is also, you know, where it looks like, you know, there's a sense that Irish people were dominated by the English, if you like. But I always say that history tells us where we come from, and it's the learnings and the vision of where we're going. And so painting a better picture of, you know, we can be proud to be Irish, because the same Samoans were noted as factory workers. They're not highly educated, and you know, but we came out and obviously through the rugby and stuff, we said, now I'm proud to be Samoan, and it's just people to get above the sand and say we are proud and we're going to make this, and we've got to think of the next generation. Otherwise, once you lose it, it's extremely tough to get back. And I think it's such a wonderful Irish people. They got every reason to be proud.
Well, Pat, Kahame Ra, Mar Gaeilge Mahane, and as a woman from Connacht and from County Galway, we were very proud to have had you to come into our province and to make the Irish language that little bit more visible, because every little bit really does help, and we were very proud that you saw that and harnessed that with us. We'd love to keep you on for longer, but unfortunately everyone's under time pressure. We're going to have to let you go. The very best of luck with Bristol. I know you have a big game coming up soon, and Tosula gon gudukatu dashirit gura mila mahagat.
Slanja, August Felcher, Gura Margaret.
Gura Margaret, Pat.
Gura Pat.